Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. I'm going to be working on a pretty awesome project today. About a year ago, I made this nightlight here out of some resin and some mahogany, and it turned out to be one of my most favorite projects that I've ever done. And I thought it would be a lot of fun to make another one, but this time take you guys along with me. Okay, for this nightlight, we've got three different components. We've got the resin topper, we've got the light, and we've got the base. The light's real simple. All this is an under the cabinet light. It's battery powered LED with a push button activator, and you can find these at most big box stores. So let's focus in on this first piece of the resin topper. We'll get some plastic down, we'll get some gloves on, and we'll get to mixing some resin. All right, we've got our plastic bag taped down to help protect the workbench, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be using some Alumilite clear cast for this project, and we're going to be mixing up two different colors. The first is going to be a blue, and we're going to get that with the blue translucent dye from Alumilite. Now it's important that you're using a translucent dye as we are making a nightlight, and so we want the light to be able to shine through it. For our second color, we're going to be making just a sparkly clear, and we're going to do that with some MICROPEARL and some extra fine glitter. So let's get these gloves on and get to mixing this resin. Alright, we've got both of our colors mixed, and now we're just going to wait for a bit. The reason for that is if we pour both of these into the mold right now, we're just going to end up with a light blue color, which is not what we're looking for. We want more of a swirled or marbled look to it, and so we're going to let these sit until the end of their work time, which for this particular resin is about 30 to 40 minutes. Then we'll go ahead and add them both to the mold and show you how we swirl these together. So what we're using for our mold is actually an old hot chocolate container, and I've just cut it down to size and cleaned everything out. The nice part about this is it's disposable, so we don't need to worry about using mold release or trying to save our mold. We can just peel this off once everything's set. So let's go ahead and get these in here. Alright, now we've got our resin into the mold and things are looking great. Now we want to go ahead and let this cure, and the cure time for this resin is 24 to 48 hours. Once this is cured completely and it's hard all the way through, we'll get it out of the mold, we'll get it onto the lathe, and we'll get it turned up. Something really important to remember when you're working with resin is that as it begins to cure, it starts to generate heat. And when you have a thicker mold like this, it generates a lot of heat. For instance, this container is super fire hot right now. So as you can see, I've got it up on this piece of wood, and I've got everything moved away from it that could possibly interact with that heat. So we'll continue to check on it for the next couple of hours just to make sure that everything's good. Okay, it's been a couple of days and our resin is hard all the way through, and so it's time to get it out of the mold. Nice thing, as you can see here, is it's already started to peel away from the edges of the mold a little bit, so hopefully that means it's going to come out of this container pretty easy for us. So let's get it out of there and get it on the lathe. Okay, so as you saw, we went ahead and got the blank onto this waste block here with some hot glue. And I've done this quite a bit. The key here is to make sure that you get your glue really hot before doing this. The hotter the glue, the harder the sticks. Okay, I think we're in a good spot with regards to our overall dome shape, so it's time to go ahead and start sanding. We're going to dry sand first, and we're going to use 150 grit up to 400 grit, and then we're going to go ahead and start wet sanding, and we'll wet sand from 600 to 2000. It's a lot of sanding when it comes to resin, but that's what it takes to get that real high gloss shine, and that's what we're looking for. So let's get to it. All right, it's time to go ahead and start wet sanding. I've got a towel on the lathe bed, and then I got my bucket of water here. My bucket, as you'll notice, is directly underneath my project. That way any drips or splashes will hopefully end up back in the bucket and not all over the shop. Just make cleanup a little bit easier. And you also will notice I'm wearing a glove. I typically don't wear gloves when I'm working on the lathe just because it's a safety issue where you don't want your hand to get pulled into the project if the glove gets caught on anything. However, I do have a cut on my thumb, and so I don't want to be soaking out in the water. So we're wearing a glove. We'll keep the lathe at a lower speed, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue. But let's go ahead and get to it. One really important thing to remember when you're wet sanding is that water makes everything look better and gives you a false sense of reality of where your project actually stands. And so it's really important to wipe things off periodically so that you can get a good understanding of what the project is actually looking like. So as you see here, as we start to wipe things off, we lose all of that gloss that was there, and we start to see the real matte finish. And as things start to dry even further, we'll start to see a lot more of these scratches appear. So we're a long way off of where we need to be, so we'll continue to go up in the grits and get this ready for polishing. All right, we've got things up to 2000 grit, so we'll go ahead and start polishing. Okay, we've got our topper all polished up and ready to go, and now it's time to start working on our base. So for our base, we're going to be using this piece of ambrosia maple. It's called ambrosia because of a fungus that gets into the wood that causes this color change, and it's really quite pretty. So I'm excited to be working with that. Now for the base, we're going to need measurements both off of our topper and also our light in order to make sure that they fit just right into our base. So let's get those measurements and then get this on the lathe. Okay, things are looking pretty good. We do have a couple of wormholes here, which is quite common in Ambrosia Maple. And so we'll just get some of the sawdust and CA glue and we'll fill those holes. Then once that's hardened, we'll go ahead and continue shaping the rest of this. Okay, that's cured, so let's go ahead and continue shaping this. Okay, I like the way that things look and the fit is great, so let's go ahead and start sanding. We'll start at 150 grit and move up to 400. Well, there you have it. Our Nightlight is fully completed, and I have to say I'm really excited with how this turned out. Overall look and appearance is great. Function is great. It's a simple push to turn it on and a push to turn it off. Thanks so much for joining me on this video, and we'll see you on the next project.